Thank you everyone for being here tonight. It's a real honor, and you're here to help celebrate the 15-year anniversary of Cervena Barva Press. So thank you, Mark and Ed, so much. And we're going to start the evening off with Ed McManis. And in 2007, I'm going to go back a little bit here so you can see it. Sister Mary Butkus. And with Ed, you never know what to expect. And I think that's what I love the most about this chapbook. And I was raised strict Catholic, I'm related to Pope John the 23rd. And when I read this chapbook, I thought, oh my God, I have to publish this. And then I thought, oh no, I'm going to go to hell. But I just love it. And so I give you Ed McManis.
Thanks, Gloria, and congratulations, Gloria, on 15 years. Thanks to Mark for setting this up. My writers group here, thanks. Family, friends, everybody I owe money, thank you too. It's coming. So this is from Sister Mary Butkus. This is called Et Cum Spirit 220. We used to joke that was the Pope's phone number. So there were 12 of us, and we lived right next to the church. So I had to serve Mass all the time when the altar boys didn't show up. Et Cum Spirit 220. God never smiled in our house. We kept him cupped in our palms as we knelt by size. 12 in our pew. Mary was stoned too. I imagine God somewhere on that altar, closer to heaven, reflection in the golden chalice, maybe sewn in the lace of Father Phil's purple vestments, as he mumbled Latin and we filed up for a piece of Jesus, paper thin. When Vatican II shot its dart through the heart of our Sunday ritual, Dad sulked for a decade, grumbling at the Celtics, the Packers, the Protestants. My brother Joe grew his hair out, and Christy brought home the smiling Jesus. It's a mystery, he said, ripping the portrait in half, but I understood the back of his carpenter's hand when I skipped Mass and watched him sink deeper into his angry couch, watched the nuns shed their raven costumes, young priests leave for a personal God that burned like a lover's itch. It's all gone to hell, he says, now that I can talk man to man. And I still pray by rote, knowing we're all filled with a different spirit, not one of us speaking in the same tongue. This is called Stained. My baby sister Sarah smiled in the shadow of the cross, gurgled under Father's holy fingers until a splash of baptism made her cry. We circled the font, 3 generations of apostles, and the stained glass windows filled with iridescent angels. But Sarah never understood the Immaculate Conception. Virginity wasn't one of her prayers. She'd skip Mass, sneak a cigarette, straddle a trash can, bribe my silence with tears. Last month during spring break, she called from a phone booth, met me, and collapsed in my arms, begging me not to tell. That morning, they scraped her clean like a grapefruit half. No one was there for me, she whispered. I hate myself. Part 2. A week ago, the Science Project mouse birthed 5 naked pinkies and disappeared. She squeezed her shrunken womb through the cage, found the open door. I knew they wouldn't live, but the students poised the eyedropper of milk above each searching mouth. I flushed the squirming bodies that morning before first hour prayers. All day a fist tightened up into my throat. Sarah wasn't home when I called. She stays out late after work with the wrong people, avoids our parents, will never forgive me for my words, how I held her with the cold hands of the church. I couldn't sleep, and when I heard my new son cry, I nudged my wife awake to comfort him. I should have remembered Mary Magdalene. I should have wiped her cheeks, dried them with her hair. This is working for my own man. I'll read a couple here. We all work for my dad. Like I said, there's 10 of us. I got fired like 4 or 5 times. I wasn't very good. This is called Hard Hat. on the job site. We're working with another crew, our scaffolds butt like rams. Keep your hard hat on and your mouth shut, he says. Show him how it's done. My saw wobbles and whines, still his blade cuts two to my one. Hey, haven't seen one of those handsaws in years. Your old man's serious stuff. The young jocks laugh, dangle their feet, more a tan than a job. But we too, we burn like monks under the foreman's sun. I feel it coming like a nail through a tennis shoe. The cocky kid calls from the second floor for the saw. His brother arcs that half moon of steel by its orange cord and it clicks to life, swings through his thigh. He hugs the beam, stares at the gash, opening a lipstick smile. See what I mean, Dad says to me, nodding his t-shirt for a tourniquet. That's what I've been trying to tell you. This is called Epiphany. Stuck on the roof, June sun baking me golden, I'm supposed to be painting. Instead, I'm dreaming of a man who loved his life. Then the weather changed. He couldn't feed his children. Kneeling in the dust, his prayer swirled like a rose petal down a canyon. He had to work for lesser men, apologize to his wife, wait for his son to understand. Words don't bring rain, easy money slips from your hand, scotch is medicinal, champagne ain't cheap. Seems wisdom finally comes when the fire's out and the fire trucks have gone. Mostly we work like dogs, a lousy memory, so many hidden bones. See here how you hold a baby's head, not like a football, but words can't explain that soft flesh alone at 3 a.m. You pay for more than one true friend, a wife who'll wait while you struggle to find the hidden man within. Don't look for meaning. Heat is not love. The wind erases every word you scratch in this earth. I just retired last week, sort of, after 40 years working with kids, ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, all the letters. I had them all. And they were called at risk. I think we're all at risk. This is called At Risk. And it came from a quote I read, Ken Wilber, the philosopher, and his quote was, "The trouble occurs when the smarter bears intersect with the dumber tourists." So that kind of summarized my teaching experience. At risk. He can smell it that first day of class, a student slouch along the back wall. Fear, like the scent of smoked barbecue, rises from the turning spit. He calculates how he must parcel the fresh beef, feels the hot breath on his neck as he turns to face the board, wonders how much to reveal of the hungry truth, wonders where to hide the loaded gun. This is called Statues for my sister. I read a poem about people turning to stone. The idea is not so new. It's in the Bible. Characters turn to pillars of salt for doubting the Lord. Payback for that human itch that makes you look over your shoulder. Cursed. I remember people as trees from my little sister's mythology books with the Middle Eastern curly-cue covers. And I recall her gluing leaves to her arms one summer, sticks in her golden hair, how she stood next to the giant elm out front, arms extended in a T until she succumbed to lunchtime and gravity. Stone, salt, wood. I think we secretly choose our elements once we've squandered our life force, waited in the wrong lines, bled for the wrong people, leaked our light. I'm hoping for wings next, maybe a griffin, even a stone lion, something on horseback, though I suspect the gargoyle rising in my chest, nibbling on my heart, will consume me first. Here's a couple of COVID poems. I'm sure everybody's writing COVID poems, so too much time. This is called Raven. My wife has been out feeding all the crows and they've all come around our house. Raven, COVID, week 3. The crows are circling tighter and tighter, 9 rings of avian hell. To appease, my wife sets out saltines on the fence post at 8 and 4, as if feeding work shifts. The first 2 days, the squirrels find the crackers scrambling down from the redwoods, tails undulating like parade banners, nibbling, hesitating, left, right, gone. Then on the third day, as if called from a page of the Old Testament, a cacophony rushes me to the window where my wife's already a witness. 4, 5, half a dozen, like winged priests around an altar. She tells me later it's called a murder. Cawing at the squirrels, pecking, wings expanding in kabuki drama, the squirrels retreat. The next afternoon, I see what looks like an oil rag in the driveway. I stoop to pick it up, realize it has a tail, guts exposed, flesh unzipped, eyes pecked out, neck hanging on. I don't say anything to my wife. The next morning over breakfast, she announces, I think those were ravens. They looked larger, the tails wedged. I, in agreement. Who studies tails? Apparently crows hold grudges, she says, reaching into the cracker box. Probably ravens too. We've been married 40 years. No doubt, I say. Maybe add another cracker. This is called a flicker. 2 short ones here, and then I'll kick it to Mark. Flicker. Everything matters less than you think. There is more nothing than distant starlight. Dark matter is God's backswing. And here you wait, fumbling to light your one candle, trying to see the outline of your family in the dark, passing the lighter, survivors. This last one is called Diamonds, as I was staring at the night sky. They say it rains diamonds on Jupiter, Saturn too, and black holes aren't really black. Gravity's real though, unless you're in orbit or don't believe. Remember, science has all the answers you need except for the ones you want. I haven't prayed in years, but last night I gazed into the April evening, words a mantra, please on the front, God at the end. Constellations scattered like salt, like diamonds, illuminating a corridor for a jagged prayer, racing for a black hole. Oh, so deep, deep enough to swallow all this grief. Thank you. Thanks for listening. I'm going to kick it to kick it to Mark.
Let's give Ed a big hand if you want to unmute for a second and clap a little bit. Really beautiful reading. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you so much, Ed. And it was good to hear you and hear a voice to the poems. And our next reader is Marc Zegans. And this is his chapbook that came out this year, The Snow Dead. And it's a beautiful book. And I want to read just one line of a blurb that was written for him. Let me see here. The Snow Dead is a quiet meditation on life and death, imagined as a series of marks in cold snow. And I thought that was so beautiful. And this chapbook just hits you in the heart. And so I give you Mark.
Thank you so much, Glo, and happy 15th anniversary for Cervena Barva Press. I'm really delighted to be reading here, and everyone who's come out, thank you so much. Because we're in this constricted Zoom format, I won't thank everybody by name, but I see you all there, and it's great to have you with us for this. I'm going to read a couple of poems around on either side The Snow Dead, and then I'll take you through The Snow Dead itself, which is a chapbook that consists of 23 very short poems that are interlinked as kind of a meta poem, and so they feel quite different when read together. But let me start you off with a poem called Starting. I ride the sea on purple curl as night draws near, arms back, head thrust, leading with my jaw. Water drops and rises as we progress, wave and I, till it scatters on sand in turbulent wash. I roll in the froth, stand, shaking water from my head like a dog, turn my back on darkening beach and scrubby hills. Look out to the sun-puddled sea slipping between my toes, inviting. I run, then plunge duck diving under the swells, a locomotive pumping. Each time I come up, the light has drifted further, calling, meet me. I give over to the tide, letting it carry me into the white, marveling at how fine a line the sun paints on wrinkled chalk in the moment before she slips beneath her covers. I survey the distant black, taste the salt, and start to swim. And that's a poem that was said at Steep Ravine Beach, just north of San Francisco, many, many years ago. The poems I'll be reading tonight sort of have three themes: the connection between the coasts, love, and death. And so turning to the second of those themes, this one's called Finding. Your lids low, as if two moons had descended so near, they covered the bare night sky. Tiny star bands singing bright below your lashes. It takes good ears to hear the sound of light. A stillness in the heart to sound your eyes, dropping line below the receding whisper, into the quiet layer, finding ground. That was called Finding. This next poem is called Whitney Ville, and it's about the little village that's just above where Eli Whitney created the first mass production facility in the country. I wrote this as part of a set of 3 poems that I developed for a book called Kerouac on Record, which is a literary soundtrack about Jack Kerouac's musical influences and his influence on rock and roll, edited by Simon Warner, who's an academic lecturer in popular music over in the UK, and Jim Sampis, who's Jack Kerouac's literary executor. And 2 of those poems, which were more specifically about music, went into the book. This third one did not, but it speaks about my relationship to Kerouac and how he brought me into the world as a writer, not personally, but through reading him. So this is called Whitney Ville. When I was a boy of 6, I'd walk to the Whitney Dam, which flowed into Mill River, and play in the detritus of the ancient armory, a site of water privilege and interchangeable parts that gave rise to industry. And slavery continued by maker of the cotton gin. I mention this as Lowell, a site of water privilege and industry along its shores, birthplace of Jack Kerouac, was a New England mill town, heavy in brick and lowered horizons for its people, who worked the endless textiles winding through its giant looms and houses of no escape. When I was a boy of 15, I knew my town as hemmed in, a name I'd given Hamden for its limited prospects and forcible normalcy. And in that town of chickie runs and street racing bumper tag and keggers at the circle and smoking Mexican shake and hockey on High Lane Pond, I found the broken covered 1959 Signet edition of On the Road and the Dharma Bums, steeply priced at 50 cents, on the broken bottom shelf of the wild papered study where my father never wrote and my mother wrote for no one. And the Subterraneans, a 35-cent Avon with preface by Henry Miller and cover art like crumbling adobe bricks in abandoned rancho at edge of town. A town that sat in my mind, far from the enforced rituals of Hemden, with garlands and oculus spelling mom in the gabled pediment, visible from the highway, named for Wilbur Lucius Cross, famed literary critic and Nutmeg State governor, that taught the Hot Ice High School, and turned the crumbling pages as if I had discovered the source code for a journey that would take me to my west, where I cruised to Pescadero, the coastal fog closing in. This next piece, the last one before I turn to the Snow Dead, is a poem about a selkie. I'm reading it for someone who's watching, who is interested in hearing this poem. For those of you who don't know what a selkie is, it's a creature of the North Sea myths, kind of like a mermaid who rises from the sea in a fisherman's net. And the story, I think you'll be able to intuit from the poem. This is called Of Irish Descent. I caught your hair between my fingers and waited till the sun went down to move in gradual curve along your neck, tracing the blackened inner curl of waves that ran higher on the shore as measured by our feet, sand piling deep beneath, than when our faces blistered in the light. I took you then to our fragile home of interlude and waves, crashing sandstone, knowing the tide would ease your troubled sleep. But now your fair Irish skin was alive, peeking from the folds of my high bed, your hair turning silky as we kissed, your seal coat buried on distant shore, reminder of coming turn to sea, when I, a Romanian landsman, would stare over swell and beds of kelp, wondering if once more you would rise for me. And now to the Snow Dead. This is a chapbook, as I mentioned, of some very, very short connected poems. And I'm going to read through it so that you can catch the through line. I've found that often when people read the book alone, they focus on a given page and a given poem, and this is a chance to feel the pulse that connects them. They leave their offerings. Quiet falls. I was surprised by the gravel scattered like crumble on top of the glacier. I had imagined it slick, glassy at the surface, not gridded, and yet the shrinking cracked massif held tread. I leaped across the crevasses in the sun-cold, unbleaked afternoon light, turning back to look into the deeper cuts, bluing in the narrows. We peer into history as we stare below the root line. Looking up is more complex, a tracing of past and a hurtling expansion, but in the ice, all is dead, purified, crystalline, and yet blue like life. The offerings are left on the surface, testamentary evidence of the killing. The bodies in ice were never offered, merely preserved, accidents and waiting. On the surface, there is no recovery. The snow dead decay more slowly. The flies do not swarm. We watch. At distance, they appear as black marks, the work of a spare calligrapher who enlivens the field by its small rupture. Dark gradient enters as we approach, first tone, then hue, then texture, finally wetness. We see the slicked blood, the glistening hair by the wound, the seeping of fluids draws raptors. A fox lies on fresh-cut snow, its neck broke, slight steam exiting its once clever mouth. Before I knew how to make snow angels, there was the corpse on the bowed lawn, arms thrown wide, palms up, fingers spread, shoed toes pointing toward the sidewalk. Someone's unmuted and their TV or radio is coming through. If you could mute, that would be great. Thank you. Legislation and rule in the US. Someone's TV is there. If you can be muted, please mute yourself. Thank you. When the first snow came, the uncut grass poked up, leaving small circles around stiffened stems, taking season as aberration. The souls speak louder. In the graveyard under winter snow, she said, leaving footprints amongst the headstones. I can't tell you anything. I missed the opportunity. My bones tell no tales. The snow heaves over my recent filled grave. In spring, it will sink, bedded then with sod. We take the frozen rictus as a grin, as if there was a secret zygomatic joke less than cosmic, merely private, as if in the life cut short at the moment of death, wry truth is given. It is a lie we tell ourselves. She was a pinup model in World War II, known to millions in glossies, then forgotten, neglected, living still into her 80s, alone in a weathered house above Route 2, attic filled with curling stills, dried ink, and bushels of love letters. The smell of dark wool tweed over dark wool suits, black shoes not meant for snow, leather gloves that will pinch and stain when touched by salt. I would walk through the woods scavenging fallen branches, the leaf-stripped deadwood, cut it, stack it, and leave it to dry. I could tell by feel how long it had rested in the snow and why. Don't be fooled, he said. Many of the snow dead have life in them yet. Some are simply resting, others hiding in winter. Most don't know. Warmth, a memory lost. Streetlights and silence in this cold place lit by candles, convenience store chocolate donuts and well-aged wine, our only food, as we sit on the floor staring out at the snow-clean street. It's 4 a.m. We're the only two people alive. You have no power, nor I, but there is electricity between us. There was always the kid who left in winter after a beating, pissed pants yellowing the snow, never heard from, hardly remembered, family erased, as the house was bought and made fresh in spring. You have collapsed all my angels. All the times I fell back and flapped my arms at 6 a.m. in the newly fallen, as if in the flurry I could leave a mark. Before I could rise, you were stomping free all evidence of my angel's visit, killing his whisper trace in the fragile snow. They carried the body out of the woods, an unseen fall off a granite ledge, the cold a kindness bringing sleep, a quiet ride into the hereafter. There was no sign of panic or fear, not even pain as he lay there unable. There was no sign of who he was. An identity would be given, but that is no sign. We feel the stillness, witness the white, are quieted. The death is a mark in the snow, a stroke in the larger picture. In spring, it is central, a tear in the fabric. There, a loss. Now, a return. So those are the poems of the Snow Dead. I don't know if you were able to see me on screen for the last part of that. I'm just seeing a sign of the Manship Residency and Studios. But if you folks would like to unmute, we'd love to chat with you for a few minutes before our time is up.
Does anybody have any questions for the readers?
I think Mark should mention that there are 4 or 5 reviews of the book he just read at Amazon on his author page.
Oh, thanks, Charles. I appreciate that. Yeah, there's some reviews on Amazon. Oh, he's got the book. And there are some reviews out in the world. Susan Weinstein, who I think is with us, wrote one, and there are several others. So thank you for that, Charles. Alex, have you got a question or a thought? Alex, have you got a question?
Oh. I didn't hear it. Yeah, I changed from my speakers. Let me get this. Okay. There we go. I think. I enjoyed Ed McManis's poem about the churches, and I was an altar boy for 6 years in a Ukrainian Catholic church, not Orthodox. And when he described the paper thin Jesus and so closely, I pictured that I was there, and I wondered, Ed, where did you derive that from? The multiple times you were going to church?
Well, yeah, there was that. As I said, we grew up right next to church. So me and my brothers, my dad would roll us out of bed because, the 6:15 mass, the altar boys would never show. So it was always us. So we'd go do all the masses, and we got real familiar with the sacristy. So down the road, as we got older, we drink the wine and we take the hosts and then take them to class
Yeah.
and pass them out. And we'd sell the hosts. They weren't very good, but we found out later that, like Gloria, we're
crazy.
probably going to hell for all that.
How many of you are not Catholic?
What's that?
How many of the there's 25 people, or how many are fellow Catholics?
Well,
A few.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I practice a different Catholicism. You know, it's I've studied 5 religions because of the 5 girls I dated. I almost became a Jew, or an unorthodox, accepted Jew, they call it. And I had to study the religion and go through these rituals. And then I wasn't rich enough. So her family found out how rich my family was. Well, he was the vice president of the distribution of the New York Times, you know, and 7 cars in the garage. That explains their lifestyle. And we had a tractor and a car to go to church in and a car to go to the store, and that was it. And they came over, and it was never mind. Well, anyways, Ed, thanks for sharing. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
Before we close, too, I would like to just say a couple words about the press. And that is that we have published over 200 books of poetry, fiction, and translations. And tomorrow we have 2 readers, David G. Walker and James Bethel. James is a fiction writer and David is a poet. So I hope you will join us for that. And finally, I have to say hi to Harvey. I hope, where are you on here? There you are, oh my God. Harvey's a dear old friend of mine, and I'm sorry to put you all through this, but I just had to say something. I haven't seen you in years. Hi. So it's really wonderful, and I'm so touched. And so really, everybody, thank you so much for celebrating tonight. And thank you again, Mark and Ed. I'm just so full of love for you guys.
Folks, before we go, I have one last little poem because Cervena Barva is in Somerville. This is a poem called Somerville, and it was published by Doug Holder in Lyrical some years ago. It goes like this. When I kissed her under the streetlight in Somerville, across from the Sherman off Union Square, I felt my feet dissolve, followed in quick succession by my knees, thighs, hips, neck, arms, and head, leaving only my lips. Lidless, I could see everything, the blue smoke surrounding her lips, drifting cool through the space where our bodies had been. The teenagers ricocheting from light post to light post, Valley's silver balls a-poppin' before draining in a chain-down Webster, the lines of cars, the strings of bars, and her long blonde hair dancing samba with the smoke. When was the last time a girl melted me this way, and me her? A double dissolve into the preternaturally warm November New England night, sea salting her delicious expatriated lips. That question would have to wait for morning, because we were kissing in Somerville, B.B. King was gone, and we had the thrill.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
So, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Ed.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Take care.